Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Change Champions podcast. In today's episode, we are speaking to every coach, consultant, trainer, facilitator, anyone who's ever thought I'm doing all the right things. So why does selling feel so gross? If you've had that ick feeling, let me tell you right now, you're not broken, but the system that you're following might be.
Exactly. Because if you've ever felt that tension between being great at what you do and yet you struggle to get clients, then this one is for you. Because what we're going to do is unpack the surprising reason why your marketing might feel a bit off and what to do instead. So we've got a bit of an outline for you today. We're going to share a shift that helped one of our clients go from doing fine to fully booked and why more content isn't the answer. And also how you can build a business that grows through connection and not pressure.
Exactly. So first things first, we're going to talk about the what you've been taught and why you feel sleazy bits. So the my new favorite term that I've heard recently, Ped, is called getting pitch slapped. And
Really
so
love it.
I
What
think
is
this
that?
is
What is that?
yeah. Well, I think anyone who has coach, consultant, trainer, any really service based business, if you are on any social media platform, LinkedIn, especially, I see it a lot on X or Twitter, Instagram. I mean, it's really is all of them. You probably have received some cold DMs offering or promising the world, and it goes straight to offer. So it is going straight to pitch, and that is the getting pitch slapped. Where there's no rapport, there's no trust, there's no context, there's no nothing. It's just straight to pitch. And the pitch first model, I think, is either A, what people are traditionally taught, and so they think that that is sales, or B, they've never actually taken the time to go and explore or learn any sales theory or technique or practices. And so that's all you're exposed to, which makes you think that is also what sales is. And you and I are going to agree here that that is wrong. That is just one branch, one piece of what sales could be. But the sales there's that overarching umbrella that I think deserves a little bit more nuance, a little more.
Right. It's a bit of a process, right? And I totally know what you mean by pitch slapped. I get pitch slapped all the time in my DMs. It's like, hey, work with me. We'll do this. It's like, whoa. You don't even know who I am. Like, where's the friendly hello and the handshake? They try and compress it all together. And I think the opposite of that though is actually thinking that you know what the market wants or what the market needs. I know that I fell into this trap really early on. Wasn't pitch slapping anyone, but I also was like busy behind the scenes, knowing what is best for the outcomes for my clients that I wanted. And at the time, I was being an education consultant. I'd worked in education myself and went and developed a whole bunch of ideas in isolation. And even though I didn't land in somebody's DMs, it was still a bit of a, to use the term, pitch slap when you eventually get in front of someone because suddenly you're just giving them the entire idea in one go. And for me, at least, I know that I went on a bit of that journey to recognizing what sales is and isn't, that process that we just alluded to. And yet, I still found that the expert advice out there was off, at least for me anyway, because it was relying on the premise that the expert still knows best. They'd say, go ahead and niche, go and think about the clients that you've served and all these things, which is all good. Like we agree with that. It's a starting point. But what they would do is say, or at least the advice that I got given to begin with was, now based on that, develop your offer. And here's some guidance around how you can think about the wordings that you could use and all those things. All really great stuff to fiddle around with. But as we know, it doesn't really work out that well because you're still ultimately going to have to pitch slap someone with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead here because I know we're going to talk about value and we'll break that down more. But essentially, if I know we both have feelings about the term truth bomb, but truth to me, this is a truth bomb. At least It was for me when I started learning more about sales, which is like a lot of coaches, consultants, especially I'd say like pure coaches, people who probably lean more towards the counseling end of the spectrum, are very I don't know, theory driven, or they've gone through some sort of methodology, or they're ICF accredited. Yeah, that camp, there's this maybe aversion to sales that comes up quite often. But my experience, my understanding of sales today, very different from like, because neither of us had any formal sales background or anything like that. Uh, but I actually think that there's so much more in common with coaching than probably almost any other industry I can think of. Because
Yeah.
it's really just it's relationship based. It's building rapport, it's building trust. And so there's actually a significant overlap in skill sets. It's really just the missing pieces, the context, the frameworks, some extra on how to apply those skills in a different environment. And so if you follow our content, you've probably heard this metaphor before, but it's very much that, like you reap what you sow. You have to uh, water and nurture the seed for it to grow into a plant. Then you can harvest the fruit. Can yank on the buds and see if there's a carrot underneath. Or well, I guess it depends if fruits or veggies or what.
Whatever it is.
But
Yeah.
like you don't want to just yank it out as soon as it sprouts, because there's not gonna be anything there. Nothing for you to. Another analogy I've heard that describes this quite well is it's like it's kind of like trying to make a withdrawal from the bank before you've ever actually made a deposit, let alone hoping that it has compounded or your investments have grown. You have to start with the human piece first, especially in this service-based industry, coaching, consulting, etc., because so much of the differentiation is based on the human part.
The interesting thing about you saying the human part and how coaches and coaches' skills and sales skills can overlap is that coaches, consultants who work with people, that is their superpower. They're so good at creating those connections. And we want to share a little story about a client of ours, Laurie, who went from being fine to fully booked. So she was great at networking and getting in front of people. Like she had no problems with that because she was that people-oriented person, but something wasn't clicking for her to make the sales. And just to give you a little bit of a preview of once she started making some of the changes that we're about to talk about, she went from finishing working with us and booking clients the next quarter to the last time we caught up with her about a couple months ago, she was booking 2 quarters ahead. Like she was fully booked 2 quarters ahead using this exact trust first approach that we want to break down for you. And this whole trust first piece, a lot of us can probably relate to this idea about adding value, right? So you meet people, you add value, you're of service of some sort. People develop trust through the value that you offer. And you go, this person knows what they're talking about. And whilst that's not wrong, it's a bit of a trap because it's an incomplete picture of what it means to add value. And so quite often what I see, and I know I've made this mistake myself, is we go and think about all the different ways we can add value. So that might be through social media, we're just posting all the time, or maybe even in a sales scenario. I don't want to call it a sales call per se, but a part of the process of sales, and you're giving value, giving value, giving value. Interestingly enough, today I was off the back of one of my posts. This gets very meta. Where I was making a similar point. I think it was about a post where your free sessions might be killing your sales, something like that. Without an active next step. That was what that post was about. And somebody left a comment saying something like, these free sessions, how do you still get people to get value from you? Appreciate your value if you don't give away free sessions. And it got me thinking about the difference between giving away everything in a free session when there's just nothing to do afterwards, right? Because you can give away all of the information that somebody needs to be successful, but and yet that's not enough.
Yeah, I mean, and there's nuance here, and this is why I'm glad that we're having these more in-depth conversations. Like it goes beyond just a post, because there's more complexity. It just to be honest, to say that value isn't enough isn't the same as saying you shouldn't have any value at all. They're different things, and it's kind of like so. One concept that we teach is the appetizer, which you're making me think of. And so we think of that as, I mean, the simplest way for me to describe it is if you've ever heard of a lead magnet. A little bit of value gives people a taste, hence appetizer. Um, there's more nuance, but I'll leave it at that for now. And so you don't want your appetizer to taste like crap. But there has to be some value there. That's the comparison we're making. But the difference is, it's kind of like if you went into, I don't know, the heart of Chinatown and then opened up like an Italian market for like that. There's a myth, like you think you're like, I know that Italian food is the best. And so I'll offer it here because there's no competition. I'm going to stand out. I'll be different. And you're like, read the room. Like that's not what people want. That's, and so sometimes even though you come from like, it's this, the curse of knowledge is how I've explained it before. And I think that originally comes from a book and plug Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. That's where I first got the idea. And it's essentially that you were, too close. You have your expertise, your knowledge is almost getting in your way of that trust and that relationship building process. And so if you come in with what we call market value bias, where you are assuming you know what the market values, but it's your bias getting in the way, like well, everyone knows the what happens when you assume things, right?
Exactly.
So we need to flip that around. Like we don't want to make the assumption first is the main point.
Exactly. And a great way of avoiding making assumptions is to have more conversations and having conversations in a very particular way though, because everything that we've just talked about, giving value, if it's not in conversation and you're responding to what the market wants and what the market's asking for, then it's going to fall flat. And I wonder whether you want to just tell everyone about how to have those conversations.
Yeah. So I mean, this is really what we're outlining here is the fundamentals of what we call insider selling. And you think of insider trading. Feels, well, it is a crime because it is unfair, right? You have an unfair advantage. You have the information first before you go make a trade. So insider selling kind of borrows from that idea where you're getting the information first before you ever sell something. And there's so many benefits to this, but at the heart of it, it's the opposite of pitch slapping. Because what you're doing is listening first. You're getting the insider information first. You're listening to people's problems, their pain points, their goals, their challenges, their whatever. You're getting all of that first, which is really the fundamental, like the foundation of what a relationship is, right? And then trust comes if you've referred your friend or a family member or just someone to something that a product you really believe in, that's selling. You're selling something. It's just you believe in it and you think it's a good fit. It's not like you don't just like if you call up your friend, you don't just start like slinging products. You probably wait until there's some sort of the context until it makes sense. So that's essentially what we're doing with insider selling. Is you're listening more, you're listening first, and if there is a fit or a connection, that's when you might suggest you insert products or a service here.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened with Laurie. So she was still getting in front of people, she was still having conversations, but instead of just sharing her know-how and how how she could help with all the different strategic pieces, etc. She just listened. So she flipped everything. And as Riley said, as you just said, you've got she got this like insider information. And that was the biggest shift because she was able to use her client's language. And that was the unlock when it came to then pitching. So when that moment felt right, she was able to go back to them and say, hey, this problem that you have, this thing that you want to achieve, these are the ways I'm going to support you to get there. And the ways that she would help them is just listed the bullet, almost like a bullet point of the language that they had used to describe their problems and or things they want. And it was that simple.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like the big picture. If we're talking about business and entrepreneurship, sure, there's lots of complexities and variables and moving pieces. But when you really boil it down, like if we're just talking about one thing at a time, it can be pretty straightforward. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it can be pretty straightforward. And I know, so Ped, you were sharing like an anecdote, but the larger like the data and market would also suggest, and especially, and this is the edge of my knowledge, so I'll raise my hands up there, but in the AI world that we're we're living in, I was almost going to say entering. I think
We're in it.
yeah,
We're
we've
in
been
it.
in
Yeah.
it. But it's like where is their trust? Like like people trust people more than they trust platforms. And even just being able to tell the difference is really difficult sometimes. What is a platform? What is a robot? What is an algorithm versus what is a real human being? And so the more you can, what we're learning ourselves as well, every day, is the more that you can put your personhood, your
Yeah.
humanity up front. Uh, and that's even outside of sales. Like we're starting to talk about really big picture here, but the more you can lead with that, really the better off you're going to be. And it just so happens that feeds directly into sales because so much of sales is, as we said from the start, relationship building, building trust.
Absolutely. Well, look, just as we wrap up then, thinking about this as being trust driven, if sales is feeling off, you're not the problem. The process that you've been taught, that's the problem. You're skipping the trust part. So if you are a people oriented person, you know how to do this, build relationships and continue listening.
Yeah. And watching our YouTube channel. If you're already here watching, thank you. And if you've watched all the way through, you're a real one. And we'd also love to know with comment, or obviously we have our, maybe it's not obvious. We have our newsletter as well. You can reply to any email, read all of them. So whether it's there or here, we just, yeah, would love your feedback, your input. Have you ever felt that disconnect between doing the work and getting the work? Just, yeah, shoot us a message, whatever your thoughts are. If you want to see more of something, less of something, let us know.
Brilliant. See you next time.